think it does slow you down a little bit. Not ideal.
We woke up in a city by the sea. I told my heart into my sleep.
Welcome to this review of the 777 Rook 4. So I've been flying it all day today. It started out really quite windy and windblown, and then gradually it's dropped right off to gone to very light conditions and a bit scratchy. So I've had quite a good variety of conditions for just today. So this is very much a first impressions review. So in summary, for my first test today, my feeling is that Rook 4 feels very sorted, high B with excellent performance, nippy agile handling, but at the same time a very solid collapse resistant wing, excellent performance, very good for punching into the wind, and good turn of speed, so feels very good. I think quite a significant improvement on its predecessor, which was already a very good wing. And the thing I'm particularly like about the Rook 4 compared to its predecessor is I think the inflation and the launch is easier and just to me feels more generally sorted, particularly in the lighter winds. If you like the Rook 3 and you were thinking about upgrading or wondering what the Rook 4 is like, go for it. You'll like it. And I think that the handling is 777 handling, and I think that handling is, it's got relatively short brakes and quite a direct, quite sporty and agile handling, a little bit rolly, but that means that you're able to roll and turn very quickly into things, but at the same time you are able to turn the glider flatter. So if you like that, you're looking for a high B wing that's got very good agility, then I think it's a very good all-round high B, and I think it's going to do very, very well in cross-country leagues and competitions, and just for people wanting to have fun flying cross-country. Actually, on that note, I've been really enjoying it flying today. It's a fun glider to fly. I personally find it a bit more, it's more of fun than its predecessor. It's very fun and playful and enjoyable to fly. I think that is partially because of the ground handling just being that bit easier, which means you feel like you want to play around some more with it. Talk through the ground handling. I think it's an all-rounder on the ground handling side, slightly favouring launching in stronger conditions because of that slight delay on the launch, but I think even in nil wind, as long as you just give the glider a good lift up and get it into the air, then it's still going to come up. Well, I think some gliders in absolutely the really trickiest nil wind conditions might have a slight advantage on it, but then this will probably have an advantage over those in the strong conditions. Easy to inflate, easy to bring up and control. As soon as you get the glider up, you feel it's very solid, very pitch stable, very confidence inspiring. It's got a tendency to want to cut through and fly through the air. It's not a glider that's hanging back and it's sort of docile. It wants to fly forwards and cut through. I am flying the glider at about 95, so pretty well loaded. On the handling, it's quite nippy. It's got kind of racy, sporty handling. It's agile, very good for turning in small cores. I think it's on the agile side. It's one of the more agile high B wings, and more agile than quite a few C-class gliders as well. Very good for working small, strong thermals. Working the weaker stuff, I found that you needed to use some outer brake and weight shift to make sure that you didn't over roll. Having said that, flying around today when it got weaker, it still was soaring around and doing well. So maybe that's just my first impression because it's nippy. Yeah, so that's to be confirmed. I feel like the speed system is very, very usable on the Rook 4. Picks up good speed. I'm going to need to, it was quite gusty and variable today, so it was like ground speed was going up and down and up and down, but I'd say it feels like a good speed for a high B. The speed bias system is light, very usable. You have a good feeling and connection to the glider. I felt a really good feeling, a connection of what's happening with the air on it, so I felt confident to use the bar, even right to the pulleys right together. Not exactly sure how much speed it pulled up, but it felt quick, and the leading edge stayed really solid. So I'm guessing it was at least 12 kilometers over trim, maybe 12 or 14. I'll have to double confirm that, but I'm confident to say that it's one of the quicker high Bs. It feels fast. I was gliding, today I was only flying next to a pilot, one on an Enzo 3 and the other one was on a Fia Allegro, and obviously the Enzo 3 is a full comp wing. The Allegro I know is quite fast, and I felt like the Rook 4 feels like it's probably as quick and keeps its glide better. You feel like you can definitely use that full speed bar, and even when it gets pretty rough and bumpy and you're punching into a thermal or wanting to get through some chop and you're punching upwind, then I think it's a glider you're going to feel confident to fly like that. Obviously all paragliders collapse eventually, so you fly actively, but I think relatively speaking it's quite a collapse resistant glider. So it's made to be for pilots who really want to push in strong conditions and punch upwind and get through chop, get to the next thermal fast. So it's made for that for sure. Big ears were easy to induce with the split A's, not too physical, quite easy to pull in. I did them a few times, and most of the time they're quite flappy, so they flapped around quite a bit, so there's quite a bit of movement there. So that's not ideal. It's not, I mean, at the end of the day they create drag and they get you down, and you use them to get you down. I think it does slow you down a little bit, but if you're using combination with the speed system, then you still keep a good speed, and because it's very usable on the speed bar and good speed, that works well. But yeah, so a bit flappy on the big ears. I did manage once to pull them in. I pulled them in sort of more inwards and held them, and then they were more stable. So maybe with a bit of practice you can get them more stable. I also did the B3s, I suppose they're C3s on this, the outer rear lines on that, and I did those on there. I don't know if it's meant to do it, but it did do it. I put on a 3rd to a half bar first, and they're quite physical and not super physical for the tip stalls, let's call them tip stalls, and they were effective. They came in, and actually I think they were more effective than the big ears. They still moved around a bit, maybe I hadn't pulled them in deeply enough. That's usually the case with tip stalls. If they still flutter, you haven't actually quite pulled them in enough. But they definitely seem to work, and seem more stable, and to give you an increased descent rate compared to classic big ears. Trying other descent techniques. It is a glider that it's quite agile and a little bit rolly, so you can get it round into a spiral quite quickly. Not that it's like overly like that, but definitely I think there's a little bit of finesse required there, but you can control it no problem. So the level of pilot flying is a high B. I think a high B gliders, okay, they are nowadays quite sporty, and so I think the pilot's ready for a high B. This is quite an easy high B to fly. In the spiral behaviour, as I said, you can go pretty quickly around. So if you want to go quickly into a spiral, you can do that. The spiral is very controllable, so I felt no tendency. I mean, I've only tested it today with the Woody Valley race, and I've not noticed any. I didn't notice any tendency for it to lock in or wind in or anything like that. There's no fluttering or flapping about. It keeps very solid. And exiting out of it, there is a little bit of rolliness. So if you come out too quick out of it, then you could get a bit of roll from it. And if you do come out quick, then of course you just need to put the right inputs to just keep the dive out straight. Next, thinking about sort of playfulness. Well, it is very agile, and so it's great for doing wing overs and playing around and swooping about the hill. I had a lot of fun actually with on the slope. Because of its agility and efficiency, I think it's very good for doing that. And playing around, doing wing overs, wagger and that, it's very good. It's not a glider, it doesn't feel like a glider that's really built for that. I've got trains, I've got microlights, I've got a plane. Anything else? I'm just trying to have a bit of quiet here. So I think for the playfulness side, this is a very playful glider. It's nimble and agile, and so for working on the ridge and playing around, it's very fun and enjoyable to do that. I think more so than its predecessor, although that was still quite agile, but this just feels like it's got the agility but converts energy better. I kept flying out to get low to come back in to test how it was for scratching back up the ridge, and there was kind of like, it's quite windy at the top and then very little wind at the bottom and quite gusty and choppy, so it's good test of a wing, and I had to come in and scratch in low and work my way up, and it was doing that very well. The only thing I'd say is that you need to make sure you don't do any bell ringing, that you have to, if you like, as in if you do left and right too much, then you could start glider like yawing a little bit, because it's got that agility. But having said that, again, for the level of pilot, there should be no issue. And actually then that agility translates to when you're working along and you find a nice bit and you want to turn precisely on it, then it's good for that. I think the handling is very precise. It's got a precision and agility and a quick reaction to turns, quicker than some other high Bs. Because of the solidity but good feedback, it was able to kind of follow and sniff out the lines quite well, and it seemed to be doing relatively well compared to higher performance wings or higher rated gliders. Seem to be doing very well at that. Pilots thinking to upgrade to their first high B, say from a low B or a mid B, or if you've been flying an A, well, if you've been flying an A, unless you really feel like an A was far too dull for you and you really feel like you wish you'd got a low B in the first place, I think if you're flying an A, you're probably going to progress onto a low B or a mid B. But if you're thinking to progress onto a high B, then I think the Rook 4 is a very accessible high B. It's not one of the more demanding ones, say like the Gin Explorer or the Gin Average, which I think of the ones that we tested is probably about the most demanding, not surprising with its aspect ratio. The Rook 4's got a relatively moderate aspect ratio, so I think it's around 5.6, 5.7. It's definitely not a high aspect ratio. So one thing I did find is that, ignore this line, this is to do with the Woody Valley race. If I hold that out, you can see there's the A's. They've done away with the B riser and gone for 2 pulleys here, like so. And with a soft handle here rather than a handle. The BC bridge is the one thing I would say, but it's a little bit on the physical side. So it's quite physical, it's not light. And so I think flying that for a while, it's not one of the lightest ones. But then again, it has a very good feeling and a very good control about it. So I guess 777 has decided to prioritise that aspect over having the lightest possible thing. Maybe it's also because the glider is very collapse resistant. I'm trying to look at little criticisms, then I guess that's the 2 things I'd say. One is the B riser steering is a little bit on the heavy side, a bit physical. The only other one was with the big ears. So the big ears are a bit flappy. And then again, they work perfectly well, so it's not a problem. The BC connection system there. Split A's. The speed system, polar wave pulleys. Brake handle, snap lock magnets. Brake line goes through a little soaring ring. I'll be honest, it's not like the best rucksack, but then again it's included with the glider and it does the job perfectly well. There's the Rook 4, so it's come in a brushing strap.